Another video by PetRock. Today I'm working on my '06 Harley Night Train, FXSTBI. Today I'm going to be adjusting the clutch and showing you how to do it. This is a fairly simple job. There's not really much to it. It's just a little bit of a finesse to it, I guess, if you want to call it that. So I'll show you some of the tips and tricks to get this done right and have a good clutch. So I happen to have my bike up on a jack right now because I've been doing some other stuff that I've shown in other videos. It also makes it easier to film, but you don't have to have your bike on a jack. You can do this with the bike on the ground. So when adjusting a clutch, you want to do it when the motor and the clutch is cold. You don't want to do it with the hot clutch because the metal inside will expand and that can cause an inaccurate adjustment. So wait for it to cool down. What you need to do is loosen the clutch cable. So we need to remove this boot, and sometimes these things have a tendency to stick to the metal on the inside. So what I like to do is I like to take a can of silicone lubricant, or WD-40 will work too. Something that'll lube this up nice, but also won't degrade the rubber, because certain types of lubricants will actually cause rubber to decay. Stick the nozzle down in there. Squirt it around a little bit, doesn't require a lot. Give it a little bit of a twist, up and down, just to work the lubricant in. Next you take a small screwdriver, pop the clip off, or just pull it. Both will work. Pull the cable out, and now you can start moving the whole thing up. Just like that. And here's your adjuster. So hopefully this isn't all rusted up. If it is, then you might want to take some penetrating oil or something to loosen up this gem nut before you try to take it off. You don't want to strip this, because if you strip this, then you got to replace the entire cable. So the top nut, the gem nut, is a 9/16, and this part right down here, the adjuster, is 1/2 inch. So you want to back the gem nut up as high as you can go, and then you want to spin the adjuster nut up as high as you want to go. Now you've given the cable as much slack as it possibly can have. So now we have to remove the derby cover. The clutch is behind this plate. These bolts are T27 Torx head bolts. Some people make the mistake of using a T25 Torx head driver to remove them, and they often strip the bolts. So make sure you have a T27. Okay, once you've got them cracked, you want to remove the bolts completely. You also want to put them down in the same orientation that you removed them. This is so that when you reinstall everything, you'll be putting the bolts back in the same spots that you took them out. You want to remove the top one last. If you take this one out before any of the other ones, the last bolt that's removed, all of a sudden this whole thing will just spin. Different years will have a different gasket. This year, the 2006, and I think all the way up to 2008 or 9, something like that, use this gasket. Others have just a simple O-ring right here. Some have a similar gasket to this where the center's cut out. They all do the same thing. So this gasket is reusable, contrary to what the service manual says. This gasket, I think, has been, I've used this maybe 7 or 8 times. Something like that. The rubber O-ring one is definitely, but if this is damaged in any way, you want to replace it. It should only go in one way, where obviously this part goes towards the clutch. So this is the up and down orientation. Another way you can key off of is this hole at the top will actually be a bit of a triangle that you can key off of to determine which side's top. Now what I did years ago to figure out which end is up on these plates, because they look pretty much the same, there isn't any real distinguishing marks, is, I don't know if you can see it on the camera, but I used a Sharpie years and years ago to draw an up arrow indicating that this is the top bolt hole. You can't go off the lettering on the casing here, because which side was up all depends on how it was installed at the factory. So I like to install these things the same way that they came off. Because these things tend to be made of very bendable material, like aluminum, they sometimes will have slight distortions to them that will have already matched themselves to the case. So in order to get them to line up perfectly, you need to reinstall it the same way each time. I've been doing it this way since I bought the bike, and I haven't had a single leak around this O-ring. As I was saying earlier, it's a good idea to put the parts down in the same order they came off. So that bolt right there is the top bolt, obviously, and these are the bottom two, and just makes it easier for you to put everything back together in the same way it came off. So here's your clutch. You got your clutch spring, and behind that in here is your clutch packs. So right here is the adjuster screw, the center pin right here. This outer nut right here is just a lock nut. It's 11/16, so you just want to break that loose right now. Making sure not to scrape up the inside of your primary case. Next, you want to take a 7/32 or 5.5 millimeter Allen head key and loosen the adjuster nut. Just a couple turns. Next, this is the critical step here, and you want to tighten it with one finger, very lightly. You don't want to apply a lot of pressure here, because the key, this is a critical step, is that you want to tighten it until you just start to feel a little bit of resistance. You don't want to tighten it down all the way. Right there. In my case, I can show you exactly where that point is, because gravity is trying to push this thing down and the resistance is not letting it. I don't want to push it any further. I could push it all the way down to here like that, and I don't want to do that. I want it to be just to the point where I start to feel resistance. So right there. Once you're at that point, you want to back off a half for a normal clutch adjustment, which is the way it comes from the factory, or 3/4 if you use the clutch to control the bike when you're running at low speeds, which I do, or a full turn if you're one of those people who does those motorcycle rodeos where you're constantly scraping your pegs, going really sharp corners at really low speeds. Then you want a full turn. For most people, you'll probably want to just do a half turn. If you're a more experienced rider where you do a lot of slow speed maneuvers, feathering the clutch in order to control your speed, then you want a 3/4 turn. So there's my 3/4 turn. I'm going to hold the adjuster screw there, and then I'm going to tighten down the lock nut. Doesn't take a lot of force to tighten this one down. You just tighten it snug and you'll be fine. Some guys have welded nuts onto sockets to be able to stick their Allen key in here to hold the adjuster screw in place while you tighten it down with a socket. You don't have to do that. You can just use a regular open end wrench and you'll be fine. So now, before putting the plate back on, I like to set the cable back to its original position and feather the cable a couple times just to make sure that everything in here is working properly. So now we adjust the clutch cable. It's actually quite simple. You have your adjuster screw here, or nut, and then you have your lock nut right here. So at the moment it's in this position where it's all the way up. You have the most amount of slack you possibly can have in the cable. By turning it clockwise, you remove slack. By turning it counterclockwise, you increase slack. So what I like to do is I like to take the clutch lever and close it all the way. Then I take the adjuster and turn it clockwise. And as you see, I will continue to turn it that way. You'll see the clutch lever open up like that. So you want to get the clutch lever just to the point where it's almost all the way out. Sorry, it's hard to do with one hand. Till about there. Okay, once you've got it here at this point, you want to squeeze the lever a couple times just to make sure that it's seated properly, and also so that the balls and ramps in the transmission and in the clutch are also seated properly. If you can't fully do this, then there's something wrong that you need to go look at in the clutch. To finish the adjustment, you want to, again, seat it like this, let it go, and pull on the cable that way. The goal is you want this gap to be about 1/16 of an inch. If you live in the States, an easy way to measure that is to just take an ordinary nickel and stick it in this area right here. So as you can see, I have to remove a little bit of slack in order to close this gap right here. So I will turn the adjuster nut clockwise, just about a half turn, and then I will recheck. You do take out a little bit more. That is about perfect. That is the perfect amount of slack that you want in the cable. And it also means there's a little bit of slack in the lever, not a whole lot. And you can pull it all the way closed and all the way open. And that is a properly adjusted clutch cable. So now you have adjusted properly, you want to take the jam nut and tighten it down onto the adjuster, keeping the adjuster nut stationary. That's it, not a whole bunch of torque. So now you can take the rubber boot and slide it over top the adjuster assembly. It often helps to rotate the rubber boot to get it to slide over properly. And now you just take it and tuck it into its little holder clip, like that. So now that the clutch cable is properly adjusted, now you can see what happens inside of here. So when you pull on the clutch, this adjuster rod is connected to a rod that goes all the way through to the other side of the transmission and links up with the clutch cable. So that pushes this section out, which compresses the spring against this plate, which then releases the clutch. Here's what the lever pulled all the way into the handlebar. So the clutch is currently disengaged. Here's it engaged. Released, engaged. Released, engaged. So now it's time to put the derby cover back on. So first thing you want to do is you want to clean up any oil that may have dripped or like that around the edges. Then you want to take your gasket, if you have this paper style gasket that this model comes with, and you just want to lightly wipe it down, making sure not to bend it or damage it in any way. If your derby cover is dirty at all, then wipe it down as well. So as I stated earlier, I like to install the derby cover in exactly the same way that it came off. So I had written the word up right here with an arrow pointing to that bolt. So that's the top bolt. So now if you look at the gasket with the words in a way that you can actually read them, this is the top bolt hole. And it's also one that's a form of a triangle, not a circle. The reason for this is so that you can take a bolt, drop it on the floor, pick it up, and take that bolt and you can thread it through. So the triangle will actually thread onto the bolt threads. So now everything is held together. It's kind of a cool idea in my opinion. So now you just take the derby cover and thread the bolt in loosely by hand. Now you take the other bolts and do the same, making sure to thread them in loosely. Do not snug these down all the way yet. Once you got them finger tight, now you want to take an inch-pounds torque wrench and tighten each one of these down in a star pattern to between 108 and 84 inch-pounds. Not foot-pounds, inch-pounds. So what I like to do is take that and half it, so 96 inch-pounds is what I'm going to torque it down to. You want to do it in a star pattern, so like this, in that order. And that's it. Now you're done. So I hope this video helped you out. Adjusting the clutch seems to be a bit of a mystery to a lot of people. It's really not that complicated. It's quite simple, as I just showed in this video. Once you do it once or twice, it'll be almost second nature. It'll take you like 20 minutes to do. So now just take the bike for a test drive, get used to your new clutch lever feel, and have fun. So if you like this video, click the thumbs up button. If you want to see more videos like this, click subscribe. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them in the comments section below.